Hello again. So today, I'm nowhere historically significant, at least linked to Culloden material, but I'm here to tell you a story anyways. So, Culloden. Why is a band of lads from the northeast of England called Culloden? What is a Culloden? Where is a Culloden? Now, for those of you who don't know, we did a song called Hills of Culloden which covers the topic. It was a battle in 1746 in the Highlands of Scotland, near Inverness. The events behind this were several uprisings in the north of England and Scotland. The premise behind all these uprisings was to depose the king that was in charge at the time and put a Stuart back on the throne. They wanted the Stuart back on the throne. The rebels, the Jacobites, as they were called. They wanted the Stuart back on the throne because he was Catholic. They felt it was heretical, it was wrong, and it was just everything they stood against for a Protestant to be on the throne. So why was a Protestant on the throne? Well, the whole shebang of inheritance, when a king dies, sometimes a king's weak or he gets the post, sometimes one event leads to another. As history shows you, a battle of Hastings, War of the Roses. Kings and queens come and go, right? That's the point. So here we are in the late 1600s, the early 1700s, mid 1700s as well, and we've got rebel groups popping up in the north of England that want the Stuart on the throne. They want to depose the king, and you don't want to do all that, okay? Fair enough. So what does that have to do with here? Okay, so in the northeast of England, where I live, there were several uprisings here, and some of the various places here had different links to different, sides and factions within these uprisings. The people of Newcastle sided with the king. They sided with King George, and through that it said, well, there's an urban legend about it that says through that they were then called George's men. Geordies. That's one of them. The other origin behind the name is to do with George Stephenson's lamps that they took down the pits. So they were on the side of the king. They were on the side of the Hanoverians, the people of Sunderland, and the people of rural Northumbria and various different parts of the region were on the side of the Jacobites. They could be said, for a little bit of humour here, that it's just typical of Sunderland to be contrarian to Newcastle. But you know what, there is a little bit of a reason for that. In the English Civil War, Sunderland and Newcastle were on opposing sides. And this rivalry goes back to Newcastle getting more coal contracts than Sunderland. Sunderland felt, wrongs and, a little bit of bad faith, a little bit of, disdain, hatred pops up. It happens. So there were several skirmishes during the Civil War and Jacobite uprisings between, those various factions. So that's the link. This is covered, well, not so much the link, but the events of the uprisings and the events of the battle itself are covered in our song Hills of Culloden. We have a monologue section that pretty much summarises it up. Apparently people like the monologues and they want more, but they're hard to fit into conventional songs. So, what's that got to do with the name? Well, with it being the culmination of the uprisings, the finale and the grand finale, the curtain call on the uprisings, it's just a really good name for a metal band, and a band that does what we do. We write our songs based on history, and one of the things I'm really passionate about is local history. I've done bits of work at the South Shields Roman Fort. I've done bits of work at Sigadunham Roman Fort. I've done bits of work at South Shields Museum. Various exhibitions, touring, tour guides. I'm interested in this stuff. It's really interesting. And what I like to do is I like to link the songs with something I'm interested in. Now, if I wrote about, the typical metal stuff about swords and cars, it would be pretty crap. I'm not very good at that. So the name Culloden comes from a suggestion from former member Jack Brown. One night, about like 2010 time, I was just talking to him about my aspirations for a serious band. I had a college band called Solar Flare that I just recently disbanded, and I just gotten Graham from that band, who was in my class at college as well. They agreed to start this new band with us. We were itching what to call it, but we had an idea that we wanted to name it after something historical and do songs based on historical events. So I was talking to Jack, and Jack was like, have you read about the Jacobite uprisings? I was saying, I know about the Jacobite uprisings and the links in Newcastle history. And eventually the name Culloden put up a couple of times, and then he said, why don't you just call your band Culloden? And I said, actually, yeah, it's a good idea. So it's because of Jack that the band's called Culloden. And Jack eventually did join the band several years later, so that came full circle. Oh, am I glad I don't like Greg's anymore. Oh, I should write a song about seagulls stealing McGreg's. That's the thing we have to put up with here. Okay, so there you go. That's the links of the Jacobite uprisings to Newcastle, South Shields, Sunderland and such. That's the links that Culloden has to the north east of England and why we are called Culloden. So, look forward to more videos like this in the future. There will be more, and we will be featuring former members.
On the hills of Culloden.